2023 is finally here, and if you're considering starting a candle business, then you need to watch this video because I'm going to go through the 8 areas that you need to consider when starting your candle business in 2023. Welcome everyone, I'm Reese from the Caird company. We're a handmade pet, skin and home care brand, and on this video we talk about everything that's involved in running our part-time business. Now if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, then make sure you subscribe to this channel and like this video. Now I've already created a smaller, more compact, less detailed version of this video for starting a candle business in 2023. So if you're short on time, check that one out first and then you can come back to this one, or stick around for this one and I'm going to go through each area step by step in a lot more detail, talking about our experiences, things that we should have done, things that we could have done, to ultimately and hopefully help you start your candle business right in 2023. But other than that, let's get straight into the video. Coming in at number 1, possibly, if not definitely, the most important thing that you need to consider when starting your business in 2023 is looking at it from a big picture point of view, which is a macro point of view. And what I mean by that is really spending the time to think about what type of candle business that you are going to start in 2023. Now, that could be you're starting your business as a hobby, as a part-time business, or as a full-time business. And to make sure that you start off on the right foot, make sure that you attribute the right resources, so that's time, money and energy, all very important things. To make sure that you're applying the right level of resources to the business, you need to know what type of business it is that you're going to be starting. Now, if you're just starting a candle business as a little hobby where you're either going to gift them to people for birthdays or for Christmases, or maybe sell them annually at a summer school fair, then you're not going to be applying the same amount of time, energy and money to that business as you would be if it was going to be a full-time business or a part-time business, as in a side hustle like what we do. Taking the time to really manage your own expectations, that's a great word, a very businessy word, but manage your own expectations will allow you to start off on the right foot, but also get to the end point and actually be where you want to be. If it's a part-time business, then you know it's going to be a part-time business. If it's a full-time business, you know you're going to have to pour all your money, possibly, all your money, all your energy into this, because this is going to be your full-time job. And equally, if it's a hobby, then you know you can only spend a couple of hours here, there, and whenever it is that you want to. So ultimately, the finished product is going to reflect what sort of business it is that you're starting. Now that all probably sounds very, very obvious, but there's lots of people that start businesses and for whatever reason it doesn't get to the stage that they want to, but it's because they're not really thought about what type of business they're starting, which then dictates what sort of level of resources you have to put into that business. If you're planning on having a side hustle, but you're just not going to put the time or money or energy into it, then it's not actually going to get anywhere. So to make sure that you get to the level of success that you want to, you really need to sit down and have a really good think about what size of business or type of business it is that you're going to be setting up. So for us, when we set up our business, the Caird company, we knew it was going to be a purely side hustle to begin with anyway, purely side hustle business. So we understood that it wasn't going to get in the way of family time, sport time, fitness time, gym time, relaxing time. It was going to fit around our full-time jobs and all the other requirements of being a family with 2 kids and a dog, etc., etc. But that allowed us to not be annoyed when the business wasn't moving as quickly as it would be if it was a full-time business. So make sure that you understand what type of business it is that you're going to be setting up, how much time, energy and money you're going to be putting into that business, so that you don't get yourself annoyed when it's not moving as quick as along the process that you think it should or that you would want it to. What you'll actually find is, if as I go through the other areas that I think are important, if you don't get this number 1 right, you can't really have a full appreciation of the other ones. So make sure you spend the time on this one, and let's move on to the next. Coming in at number 2 is brand. So there's a reason that there's so many hundreds, thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands, I don't know, candle businesses and candle companies out there. It's because making a candle business is actually quite an easy business to start. The margins are really good, the setup costs are quite minimal, and you can start out of a small area quite quickly. But to make sure that you're having an impact and you're standing out in 2023, because the market is saturated, you need to make sure, even more so now, that your brand is absolutely on point. Now when you think about brand, that's obviously things like your font, your colours, your logos, kind of your general feel, which is something that's not quite tangible, but your general overall feel of your brand. But also you need to make sure that that brand is flowing between digital, physical products and any sort of advertisement that you're using. So anything that you put on your social media, anything you put on your website, that needs to make sure that it's coming across onto the actual product itself and onto any advertisement that you send out via email or in hard copy as in paper. And you also want to make sure that your brand is flowing really well across all the different products you have. So if you look behind me, we have our, let's take this one, Karma Cleanse hand wash and our Beach Bum hand lotion. Two different products, two different colours, but the branding is quite interchangeable. You can see that they just flow straight across both of these different products. And then when you compare our Calm Dog, Fresh Dog, and say Lovely Lugs, which is an ear cleaning thing, so we've got pet care products as well. You can see that these, oh, I'm not doing a good job here. You can see that these products flow quite interchangeably across the different product range. So the branding is so important for 2023. Now when it comes to your branding, there's two different ways you can do this. You can do all the work yourself or you can outsource it. Luckily, my wife, who's not a digital creator, Yvonne, not a digital creator, not a digital marketer or a graphic designer, somehow managed to make these fantastic labels completely from scratch. Now that didn't happen overnight. It certainly didn't happen over a month. It took quite a long process, and that is something again that you need to understand, is that from number one, the big picture, if you're going to be spending a lot of time, energy and money into this, you know it's going to take a little bit of time. So when it does take that inevitable amount of time, it's not going to disrupt you and it's not going to frustrate you, because this process is a process and it certainly takes quite a bit of time. When it comes to your branding, again, you want to really aim for that thumb stopping sort of brand, that somebody scrolling on Instagram or TikTok or something, people just go, whoa, that looks really cool. You want to have a brand that's got that impact, that's able to grab people's eyeballs. You really need to, sounds very strange, but when you're thinking about brand, you need to think about eyeballs. It's all about attention. People are going to be looking at your stuff online, website, social media, etc. You need to capture that eyeball and keep that eyeball, not literally, obviously metaphorically, keep that person's eyeball on your stuff, and you do that by having a very strong brand. Now when it comes to candles, there's different areas that you can look at when it comes to your brand. There's a lot of different niche type candle companies out there. There's some that specialise in kind of like a gothic look, that have dark coloured, red coloured wax, and they have sort of blood. There's some that are quite book orientated, so they have scents of leather-bound books, or they pair well with different types of books that you're reading, and that would be described as your niche. So when it comes to brand, if you're going to go down, in my opinion, if you're going to go down a niche point of view, as in you're niching down in a specific type of candle, say it's books, what you'll probably find is that your brand will flow out of that niche. So really have a good thought process about what type of candle business it is that you're wanting to set up, because you'll find a lot of the other details will naturally flow out of that. So a good example of that is a lot of candles will have quite a classic sort of look. So here's our glass candle, quite a classic, neat. You can imagine that sat in a shop quite well, just very classic, and you could have that in your front room and it's very nice. But we've also got our utility tin candle, which is a lot more funky. We normally have a logo up here and the sticker on the bottom, but it's a lot more funky. So that allows the same type of brand, let's get them in the camera, to flow across two different products, but actually appeal to a different type of person. Now when you talk about this person that you're selling to, a good way to think of it is an avatar, not literally the movie Avatar, but a person that you think will buy your products. Now, what to do with that avatar is you're wanting to consider the demographics, so the age, potentially the gender, where they're from, their interests, and that allows you to target that person. So if you think somebody is, for example, you're selling candles to somebody that's quite gothic, you're not going to have a very florally, light colour, pastel coloured logo or brand. You're going to have quite a dark, sort of bold, bolshy, thick sort of font. That allows you to appeal to that avatar, which ultimately gets their eyeballs, which ultimately then gets them onto your website and hopefully buys your product. So the big takeaway from that is that brand can appeal to so many different people. Brand is a very, very long-term sort of thing. The way that we made sure that we did it correctly for us is that we spent all the time and energy and money up front so that we didn't come to the launch day and that we're selling a brand or a product that we weren't quite happy with. We put all our time and energy into making sure that brand, the designing, the label, the website, everything was at a stage that we were not going to want to change, certainly not in the short term, so that as soon as we launch, we can then focus on actually building the business instead of relaunching with a rebrand and a redesign and different colours, and that's a headache. It's up to you how you want to do it, if you want to move fast and quick and get your product out there, or if you want to take the time to design the product that you're 100% happy with and you won't want to change in the short term. Whatever works for you will obviously work for you, but make sure you consider it when you're coming up with your brand. Coming at number 3 is your selling strategy. So when we talk about selling strategy, there's really 3 ways that you're going to sell your candle, mostly. That's going to be in person, online, or retail/wholesale, however you say it. Now there's also another type called white label, but I think for this video we won't concentrate on that at all. In fact, we won't probably even mention it. But the 3 ways are in person, online, or retail. And the reason I mentioned that you need to consider your selling strategy is that it will really it'll make a big impact on a lot of other areas. For example, if you're just going to sell in person at summer fetes, at farmers markets, at craft fairs, your whole business will look differently to somebody that sells just online. You need to spend more money on things like tables, things like large logo and banners, and having money to make sure that you can buy a table at a craft fair, stuff like that. Whereas if you're selling online, you obviously need to think website, social media, marketing, emailing. I don't need to think about a table. So depends on which way you're going to be selling, really makes you have to think about how you're going to actually form and format this business. Equally, if your business is going to be purely wholesale, purely retail, that really affects other areas like shipping and pricing and stuff like that, which we'll talk about. So you need to make sure that you consider that upfront straight away so that you can actually step off for success. For us, we want to do a bit of a kind of hodgepodge, a bit of a hybrid version. Mostly it'll be online and wholesale. We might do some in-person stuff, but that's not something we're going to focus on too much. We're going to spend more of our time online and making those connections with retails, which we've already done. But because we made that decision up front and early, we're not doing things like researching farmers markets, craft fairs in the area, stuff like that. We're looking at businesses, independent shops, people that we can speak to on LinkedIn, as in making networks. And we're also making sure that our website and our social media is as user-friendly as possible, which basically means as easy for people to buy your product as possible. So as I mentioned, if you're looking to sell in person, you could do summer fairs, you could do summer fetes, whatever you call it, farmers markets, craft fairs. These are really good methods to sell a large quantity of your materials very quickly. Now it's hit and miss with the weather, with the location, the time of year, stuff like that. So the best thing for that is before you buy a stall, maybe even if you can, visit the place before. Find out what other people are selling, speak to the people that are actually selling stuff, find out when the best time is to come, and get as much information as you possibly can so that you then have success when you go to sell in person. Now if you're selling online, that's obviously the way that I would suggest you do it. I just can't imagine having a business without having a website. But the way you could do that is you sell it on your website, or you sell it on TikTok, or you sell it on Instagram, or any other social media platform that I'm not even aware of. And knowing that you're going to be selling online makes you put the time, energy, and resources appropriate to getting your website spot on. Now again, for us, we've done everything ourselves, 100% ourselves. We've not outsourced anything. So it took me quite a while to figure out how to actually set up a Shopify website. But once I read the user's manual and the dummies guide, it's actually quite a simple thing, especially if you just watch a couple of YouTube videos. But the fine tuning is then the difficult part, the actual branding on your website, making sure that the photographs are accurate, which we took as well. And having that understanding of your selling strategy allows you to put the appropriate time into that aspect of selling. Now equally, we are selling in retail stores or wholesale, and we've had to put the amount of time into cold call emails, phoning people, going to shops and selling in person, making those connections and trying to get our brand out there. If we walked into this business with not really thinking about how you're going to sell, it might really catch us with our pants down, and we might not have the appropriate knowledge and understanding of how long it takes to build up connections with retail stores in your local area, for example. So before you start your candle business in 2023, which I hope you're going to do, by the way, make sure you spend the appropriate time to think about your selling strategy to make sure that you start off on the right foot. Okay, coming in at number 4 is social media. Now, this is quite a biggie. When you start a business, especially when you start a candle business, but probably any business, when you start a candle business, you are going to have to be wearing lots of different types of hats. What that means is you're going to have to fulfill many different aspects of the business, from production to graphic design to branding to logistics to operations to admin, boring, all the way along to social media as well. Now, something I'll hold my hands up to, when we started a business, I just didn't appreciate the amount of time and energy, not money, but time and energy that would be required to go into your social media presence to make sure that you're posting at a frequency that you're happy to, which we'll come on to. But it's just having that time and energy taken up by social media. I think a lot of people underestimate it. I think probably everybody underestimates it. And when you're starting off as a business, lean, and only a few of you, you're going to have to get involved in social media, and that's going to take up a lot of your time. A lot of people, when they launch their business, will spend so much time on branding and website and the legal aspects and testing candles, and they'll launch their business, the business looks fantastic, and then it's just crickets, flatline. Nobody's coming to the website, there's no traffic coming, because you've not spent the time and energy into getting your social media presence up there so that you've got eyeballs on you already, and those eyeballs can then be dropped over to your website, and then people will start buying your stuff. So when it comes to social media, a really good way to think about it is what, when, and where. What will be what sort of content you're going to actually be posting. So if you're a candle business, it's going to be making the candles, packaging the candles, testing candles, looking at different fragrances, looking at different wicks. There's a lot of different types of content that you could post for candle making. Where will essentially be what social media platforms you're going to be most content with using, but also where is that avatar? If you're selling to a demographic of 15 to 25 year olds, they're not going to be on LinkedIn. They're going to be on TikTok watching funny videos. They're not going to be on LinkedIn networking. So you need to think about the people that you are selling to and what platform they're going to be using to make sure that you can get those eyeballs onto your products. And then when it comes to when you're going to post, that's essentially just your frequency. Now, my suggestion is you don't pull a Gary Vee and try and do 100 bits of content on 10 different platforms every single day, because you will just burn out, especially if it's a part-time business. I would suggest that you aim for a frequency that you think you're happy with. So for example, if you're going to post 4 times, you say, I'm going to post 4 times on Instagram, I'm going to post 4 times on TikTok. I would take that number and drop it down by one or two to begin with, maybe 1. So if you're wanting to do 4, aim really for 3, because once you get that success, you'll have that upward spiral of consistency, getting that success rate, as opposed to setting a target that is way too high. I'm going to post 15 times on Instagram, and it comes to a couple months in and you've done an average score and you've looked at it and you've posted 3 times. Set yourself up so that you can maintain that positive mindset, that positive attitude. By hitting your goals, just bring them down just a little bit. What you've got to remember is that large-scale businesses will either subcontract out social media to independent contractors who will spend their entire time on social media. But if you're setting up your own little part-time business, then you're going to have to do that in your own time. So don't batter yourself down when you can't quite meet that sort of frequency level that you want to. The key is to just stay consistent and do that consistency over a long period of time. Coming at number 5 is pricing. Now, when I said number 1, big picture, was the most important, I still stick by that, because your big picture viewpoint of what type of candle business you're creating will massively impact your pricing structure. Now, when it comes to pricing, you really need to think about, are you setting up a budget candle business, a sort of medium budget candle business, or a luxury candle business? Now, for me, a budget candle is somewhere between, say, £4 and £10. £4 and £10. I don't know what that is in dollars. £4 and £10. Somewhere in the middle, a medium budget is maybe somewhere between like 12 and 20. And then really upwards of 25 is you're getting into the luxury candle business there. So understanding what type of candle business you want to set up will massively impact the pricing structure that you're going to be using. Other things you need to think about, obviously, are your ingredients. So for example, the difference between fragrance oils and essential oils for a fragrance is vast. Any essential oil candle is going to have different qualities and appeal to different avatars, but that's going to come at a different price point because it's just more expensive than fragrance oil. So when it comes to pricing, you need to know exactly how much it costs to make one of your candles. Whew, that's nice. For me, I know exactly how much it costs to make every one of these products. And I've got it all written down on a spreadsheet that takes into consideration the vessel, the wax, the fragrance, the wick, adhesive pads, the label, everything. And that then allows me to create the proper pricing structure, because I also understand the selling structure, or the selling strategy, should I say. Having an understanding of the selling strategy, the type of candle business we're creating, and how much it actually costs me to make that, allows me to then price it appropriately for any customer. Now, a good rule of thumb that I've heard from a lot of other candle makers is to take the price of your product to create that, everything all included, and use it at a number, times it by 4, for example. So if that cost £3 to make, you could times that by 4 and you could price it out at about £12. Now that's just a very, very rough guide, because it doesn't take into consideration, or maybe it does, but it might not factor in completely all the other variable costs that go into your candle business. So the price of equipment, the price of gas, heating, insurance, your website, etc., etc. But it can also actually depend massively on the location. So if you were to sell it somewhere very remote, where products are harder to get shipped into you, or more expensive to get shipped into you, then you might have to price it at a slightly higher price. Equally, if you're in somewhere where the cost of products are a lot lower, then you probably can't price the same candle at the same price in somewhere that it costs more to get the parts, if that makes sense. Now, the disparity across the UK is probably not as vast as it would be in America. So really, unless you're in the larger cities like London or Birmingham or Manchester or Liverpool, really your pricing structure should really be dependent on the general price of your product, which should be the same across the UK. Now, when it comes to selling in retail, that's a completely different subject, and that's something I will discuss in a separate video all about selling in retail, because that price really depends on the shop. You can give them an advised price, but it doesn't mean they have to stick to that. They can always go up from that. So for example, if we were to say we market this at $11.99 or $12.99, the shop doesn't have to sell it at that. They can sell it at a premium, they can sell it above that, as long as that's all communicated to you. So that's a different pricing structure that you need to consider if you're doing retail. Now, a very, very quick, cheap and easy hack is just to have a little look at other people that are selling in your area. Have a look at people's websites, have a look at their candles, understand the type of vessels they're using. That should then allow you to kind of do your own research and understand how much other companies and businesses are selling a similar product in a similar location. And that should ultimately help you structure your pricing strategy. I am going to do a separate video purely on pricing, so I can go through each point stage by stage and kind of be a little bit more specific for the UK. There's a lot of really great candle making channels, but they tend to be US based, and there's a couple little nuance differences between the US and the UK, and that's when it comes to pricing, and that's something I'd like to discuss in a future video. Coming at number 6 is shipping. Now, the good news is that if you're selling in person, you don't need to watch this bit. Skip to the next subject and I'll see you there. But for everybody else that's going to be selling online or retail, let's go through shipping so we fully understand it. So for our website, we use Shopify, and in the UK, we use Royal Mail for our delivery service. Now, we use that because Royal Mail's got a great integration into the Shopify website. It allows you to track your orders, what stage of fulfillment they're at, when they're fully fulfilled, and then print off the label and just slap it straight onto the box or packaging. And it's also really great if you've got a few different people working in the business. It can actually kind of show you who's doing what at what time. Now, much like all the other aspects that I'm talking about in this video, I'm going to do a separate video all about how we ship our products, because I think it's really, really key that in 2023 we do everything we can to save what money we can. There's a couple of little different things that we do with the Royal Mail that helps us save a little bit of money, which ultimately allows us to then reinvest and refold that back into the business for 2024. But the important thing is that you do your research for what's most applicable and most suitable for you in whatever part of the world that you're currently in. Search all the major delivery services, find the cheapest price, and again, sometimes the cheapest price isn't the best company to go with. Make sure that it's easy for you to use. The fact that Royal Mail for us is actually very, very cheap, but also has a great website which integrates with our own website. It makes it a no-brainer, and it makes it a very, very simple thing for us to use. So when it comes to your shipping as well, you want to be considering how you're actually, physically, literally shipping your products. Now, we've went down a very eco-friendly route. In fact, if you can read that, every product that we sell actually plants a tree through a partnership that we've got. So that's a very eco-friendly thing from the outset, but we make sure that we buy eco-friendly packaging when we do any sort of shipping. But something you definitely need to consider is the pricing of that, because eco-friendly unfortunately tends to come at a slight premium. So again, make sure you have an understanding of exactly how much it costs for you to send every product that you sell, so it allows you to track that costing. Now when it comes to shipping your orders, I guarantee you the first couple of orders you send will take you hours to package, because everybody's a perfectionist when it comes to this sort of stuff. You'll twist this, you'll adjust that, you'll rewrap, it'll take you hours. But what to make sure that you do, or you do, is that you get a system in place to get those orders out quickly. Understand all the bits of materials that you require to send every individual product or every gift set to make sure that it gets there safely to the customer and in one piece. Something you also want to do is try and track how much material you're using. Try not to use more than you need, because one, that's a waste, so it's not environmentally friendly, but also it's going to cost you out your back pocket. If you're using 2 meters worth of wrapping, when 1 meter, that's not a meter, but 1 meter will do, you're losing out there on literally money that you're then shipping to somebody who's just going to recycle it. So make sure you do test runs of actually packing your orders so that they're safe and financially they're appropriate. The one thing you need to do is make sure that you're testing that. So if you've got friends or family that live away, post them a couple of things. So for example, you might think that this tin is a really simple thing to package, but, well, we normally have a sticker here, but this dents very easily, and that dents, well, it's dirty, very easily. So we need to make sure that this is packaged so that it doesn't dent very easily, or it certainly doesn't dent at all, because if you're selling that to retail, if you sell 100 candles to a shop and 10 of them are dented, guess what happens? Those 10 are coming back to you, and it's coming out of your pocket. Not only is it time and energy for you to then make another 10 and send another 10, that's actually going to cost you literally money to then make those other candles. So make sure you do everything you can to test shipping things to make sure that it gets to your customer in one piece. So coming in at number 7 is refining the product. Now, in my full-time job, I would call that continuous improvement. And it's actually massively, massively important that you apply refining the product or continuous improvement to not just the product, but all aspects of the business from start to finish. Making sure that you're continuously looking for improvements in shipping, in pricing, in product design, in product purchasing, in materials and equipment allows you to do the same job but either leaner, cheaper, faster or more efficient. Some of them are the same things, but you get the understanding of what I'm getting at. It allows you to achieve the same objective but with a little bit more ease. Now when it actually comes to the product itself, for example, this label here, if I can get that in focus. No, it's not wanting to focus. This label took many different versions to actually end up in the state that it's at now, which is a very nice state. But that's all about redefining the product. Not only with defining the product that's in the vessel, the actual thing that you spray, but this is the thing that's going to catch people's attention. So you want to make sure that it's catching their attention. Again, that comes from the brand. But when you come up with a label, don't just slap it on and think that job's done. Actually test it, get people's opinion on it, provide the product to friends, family, show people the product, post it online, get people's opinion. That'll allow you to tweak certain areas or actually drastically change certain things. Again, you might be so focused on your business that you're wanting to create, for example, an elegant luxury candle business. You come up with a label, you come up with a brand and a design, and it's not very good, but you think it's very good. You need to get other people's opinions so that you can refine and redefine and sometimes redesign the product to make sure that it's hitting that avatar's eyeballs, capturing their attention, and then they're ultimately buying your product. Now, something that I've already mentioned is that when we started our business, we took a different approach. Instead of being fast, quick and aggressive and getting the product out to market nice and quick, we wanted to make sure that we spent the appropriate time to really redefine the product before we even had to redefine the product. We wanted to make sure that we spent all the time, money and energy in getting the best possible product, a product that we are 100% happy with, to the finish line when it comes to launch. A lot of businesses, a lot of small-time, part-time businesses, especially first-time businesses, will launch quick, launch early, and they won't be very happy with the actual product. They'll then do a redesign, which then means a relaunch and changing labels and changing logos and fonts and overall general feels of the brand. So that actually can sometimes massively confuse customers. If people have already bought into your specific type of brand and you're not really happy with it, you bring it back, completely change it, you might as well just start all your social media again, because the people just aren't going to understand what's going on. So we made sure that we spent all the time up front to design the label. I didn't design it, Yvonne designed it. All the time and energy to design the label, design the brand, design the product, so that when it comes to launch of the website and the business, we don't have to focus on any of that stuff. We can focus on building connections, getting eyeballs, getting different customers, getting different followers and subscribers and blah, blah, blah. All the things that you should be thinking about, not worrying about having to change a font or a logo or a design. But ultimately, it all depends on what type of business you're wanting to set up. If you're wanting to set up a hobby business, then you might not need to spend too much time on the actual logo and brand itself. You'll be more interested on testing the product, which we'll talk about in a second, to make sure that it's safe, etc. And if you want to change the labels on a little hobby business, then it's not too much of a big deal. But that really just feeds back all the way to point number one, which is your big picture and having a full understanding of the type of business you want to start before you start it. Now, coming in at number 8, don't worry, we're almost there. Coming in at number 8 is test, test, test. Now, we've already talked about testing your shipping, but what I'm going to be talking about, because we're going to be starting a candle business in 2023, or you certainly are, you need to start thinking about testing your candle. Now, from my experience and previous jobs in fire safety and stuff like that, I am absolutely rigorous when it comes to testing candles. I can't explain to you how important it is, but from a personal point of view, I'm so passionate about making sure that your candle is as safe as possible. So with that in mind, I'm going to do another separate video. I've got lots of videos to do in the future all about testing candles, how I test candles, and I might even throw in a cheeky free download of my candle testing spreadsheet so that you can then use it for your own business. But if we just talk about it very, very briefly, when it comes to testing your candles, you absolutely have to make sure before you even think about selling your candle is that it's tested. And that really, really means properly testing. I think if you look on TikTok, unfortunately it seems to be TikTok, you'll have a lot of pretty looking glittery candles with this, that and other things on top of the candles. But see, when you actually see that thing burning, the candle is not healthy. The flame is barely alive. All the wax is getting mushroomed back into the wick. The wick's starting to expand. The candle just doesn't look. The candle doesn't look good. That means that your candle isn't burning properly, so the fragrance isn't getting away. It's tunneling. The customer isn't getting the full experience of the candle. But most importantly and most scarily is that candle is not safe. I've had candles that I've tested and I've just not been happy with for whatever reason. Some fragrances are just a pain. And it doesn't matter what wick ratio you use and wax and vessel, the fragrance can just sometimes be very annoying and the wick will mushroom. So I have just cancelled certain fragrances because I'm not happy. And I will not sell any candle that I'm not happy with 100%, because if I'm not happy with it, then it means it's not safe, and I certainly wouldn't allow somebody to buy that from me. So before you start your candle business, I don't want to scare you, but before you start your candle business, make sure you understand how to make candles. I've got a candle making video on YouTube. 2 in fact. Give them a watch. I'll go through a little bit of detail in those videos. If you want any more information, feel free to email me in the address below somewhere in the contacts if you want any more advice. But there's lots of different YouTube channels that's got loads of information, loads of blogs, loads of videos, etc. that you can get all the information you really need to make candles. But the biggest takeaway from that is just make sure that you test. Not only test so that you're actually having a product that works properly, but make sure it's working properly so it's actually safe for your customers. And that's it. Those are my main 8 areas that I think that you need to consider when starting your candle business in 2023. Now, there are, of course, other areas that you need to think about, whether that be understanding bookkeeping and accounting, or inventory, stock list, stuff like that, or the admin side of things, or the legal side of things. There's a lot of other areas of starting a candle business that you certainly need to consider. And like I said, there's a multitude of different really good blogs and other videos that go through every single step that you need to consider when starting a candle business. But for me, these are the 8 big things that you need to consider to make sure that your candle business is actually successful, and to make sure that it's a candle business that you actually want to start. As always, we are newbies to YouTube, so if you can like this video and subscribe to the channel, it really would help us out with that pesky algorithm. And if you agree or disagree with anything I mentioned in this video, put it in the comments below and I'll reply and we can have a little chat. Also, you can check us out on our socials, have a look on our website, or email us if you want to discuss anything further. Other than that, I hope you have a great week and I'll see you in the next video.